Cell phone stolen from a homeless person. I stole a cell phone from a homeless person I happened to see. His life changes drastically after he steals the cell phone. This is a horror story about one stolen cell phone. I had been spending my time wandering around after college, and the part-time job I had been moving from one place to another ended up in a fight with the manager, and I became unemployed. But I thought I would find a new part-time job soon, so I spent a few days playing pachinko and just going about my life as I pleased. One day, after a late night of drinking with friends at an izakaya, Japanese-style pub, I was walking around the neighborhood to sober up when I saw a homeless man walking around. He was a dirty-looking man. He was carrying a plastic bag and wearing what looked like sandals. Since we were going in the same direction, I was kind of following him, and I was curious to know what kind of place the homeless guy was sleeping, so I decided to follow him. The homeless entered the elevated area. There were several cardboard houses there, where a number of homeless people had taken up residence, and the blue color of the blue sheets could be seen through the blue sheets even with night vision. The homeless guy I was following would bend down and enter one of the small cardboard houses, then quickly get out again and go away. But there was no plastic bag in his hand. As I watched him from the shadows, I felt the devil whisper to me, "Now I can break into that cardboard house and no one will be there. I don't intend to do anything wrong. I was just curious about the inside of the cardboard house." With this excuse as a pretext, I entered the cardboard house unannounced, in the cover of darkness, so that other homeless people would not wake up. Of course, it was smelly, cramped, and dark. I used the light from my phone to illuminate the inside of the house, and found it to be only 2 tatami mats in size. Most of the area was filled with small things that looked like trash, cardboard boxes, futons, and other necessities of life, and there was not even enough space for a single adult male to lie down. I wondered if that homeless man always sleeps curled up in this footholdless space, and I thought to myself, I don't want to be like that. I looked around inside, and found some alcoholic beverages in a small, dirty cardboard box, but as expected, I had no desire to touch them when the mouth was open. I groped around for something unusual, but just as I was about to give up on the idea that a homeless person would have such a thing in his possession, I found a plastic bag wrapped in a blanket. I was convinced that it was the plastic bag that the homeless man was carrying when he was walking around. Thinking it might contain something valuable, I excitedly untied the knot and found a cell phone inside. I don't know when it was made, but it looks a little clean, not faded overall for all the paint and scratches. I try to press and hold the power, but it won't come on. Is it out of power? But as I press the power again and again, I hear zap footsteps behind me and turn around to see the returning homeowner, a homeless man, opening the blue sheeted door like a curtain and peering inside. Then he turns around, sees me, and exclaims, "Whoa, whoa, who's that?" I exclaimed. I yelled reflexively, "Whoa." I reflexively shouted and pushed the homeless man away with one hand, and he fell on his buttocks. I jumped out of the cardboard house and ran out from under the elevated railway tracks at once. From behind me, I heard an old man yell, "Wait, Kalaya." I ran until I couldn't hear him anymore. I was soaked to the bone, and after confirming that I had scattered the homeless, I went home, pocketing the mobile phone that I had taken home without a second thought. As soon as I got under the covers, I felt a pang of guilt, thinking that I had committed theft when I had intended to simply visit a homeless person's house. I blamed myself, thinking that I was no better a criminal than the homeless man, and decided that I would silently return the property to its original state the next time the homeless man was out. I foolishly thought that as long as I put the actual thing back, I would be absolved of my crime. But the next morning, curious about the contents of my phone, I decided to buy a charger and see if it would turn on. Curiosity got the better of me, and I really wanted to see what the homeless guy was storing on his phone. I plugged in the charger and the light lit up, so it seemed to be alive. I turned it on and it booted up normally, although it took a while. Now, what kind of things does it save? I open the data folder while thinking that it is an erotic image anyway. Sure enough, a lot of erotic images were saved. There were also some erotic movies, but the picture quality of both the images and the movies were much worse than now, probably because it was a model from a decade ago. Well, not to the level of being unwatchable, but it was funny to think that homeless people are also venting by watching this kind of thing after all. In terms of genre, there were many office workers and high school girls. As I continued to go through the folders, I found another folder in the folders. The title was only the year and the month, 20XX year 0. I wondered what it was, and when I opened it, I found a lot of bizarre images that I could see even through the thumbnails. I gulped and pushed the control button with nervous fingertips, and a picture appeared. It was an image of what appeared to be an elementary schoolboy whose hands and feet were bound with rope. His mouth was also covered with duct tape. But his face, especially his right cheek and right eye, were swollen as if he had been punched, and it was clear that the image reeked of crime. What the heck, man? Next, open one of the images below. The boy from earlier is shown lying down and curled up. The place where the image was taken appears to be in a car. A boy lay restrained on the back seat of a car, a wide seat that looked like a wagon, slightly obscured by what appeared to be a car window frame. The other images were of a boy who looked like he had been assaulted, and my mind was tainted by the pain. Still, I dug through folder after folder, perhaps because I was afraid of what I might see. But the moment I opened the next image, I clamped my mouth shut. It was an image of a boy's decapitated head. His eyes were half open and vacant. The tongue seemed to be spilling out, and it was just grotesque. I unintentionally pressed the crosshair on my cell phone and moved on to the next image. The next image was of a girl in junior high school. She was in the same position as the boy, restrained in the car. I had a bad feeling. So I did not look at it. This phone is bad. Or rather, this homeless guy who owns it is in trouble. I regretted what a thing I had brought home. I wondered if I should go to the police station with this phone. But then I realized that even if the images were real, there was no guarantee that the homeless man had taken them himself. He may have downloaded them from some website, or he may be a person with that kind of taste. In that case, it would be like me turning myself into the police station and saying, I stole the homeless man's personal belongings. If the homeless man was a criminal, there was no way he could have caused such a heinous crime and not been caught. I reconsidered. Then, I decided that it would be wiser to return the phone in silence, as I had originally planned, when the homeless man was not around. But it was only one pachinko. So I got some ramen noodles on the way home from pachinko, got a job magazine from a convenience store, and went home to find the door unlocked for some reason. I thought to myself, what? Did I forget to lock it? I went inside, tilting my head, and just as I passed the hallway, a passageway integrated with the kitchen, I heard the door to the bathroom open with a clunk. I did. I screamed, and while I was screaming, I was being held down by the back of my head, with my arms tangled behind my back. I didn't know what was going on, but I understood that someone was riding me from behind. But as I was about to shout something or say to somebody, something cold was placed on my throat and a drugged voice whispered, "Be quiet," in my ear. I felt like my body temperature dropped all at once. I replied dumbly, "Yes." I was too scared to respond properly, but the person holding me down must have thought I wouldn't resist, because he let go of my arm. At the same time, they backed away from my back, and I slowly turned around as soon as I was released. I was scared to death, because I was already freaked out. There was a man standing there, a complete stranger. He was a kind of dirty middle-aged man with a peculiar body odor. I quickly mouthed, "Who?" And he squatted down in front of me and said, "Brother, you have something you stole from me, don't you? Right?" He brought his stubble face close to mine. His breath reeked of alcohol, But I finally realized that he was yesterday's homeless man. From what he said, I stole something from you. When I said, "Oh, he asked, "Where is it?" He grabbed me by the collar. He just grabbed me, but I felt intimidated as if I was in front of a big tree. I thought I was going to get hit, so I immediately said, "Oh, over there," and pointed to the bed. The uncle let go of my collar as he pushed me away and stripped off the bedclothes. Then, the cell phone I was hiding under the blanket fell with a thud to the floor. Picking up the phone, the uncle opens it on the spot. However, he immediately wrinkles his brow and looks at me. "Hey, bro. Did you look inside?" "What?" I charged my phone to see what was on it, turned it on and left it on. "Oh shit." I nodded my head again and again, too late to think about it. I looked around suspiciously to see if there was any way I could get out of there. Worst of all, he was standing blocking the passage to the front door, and I was sitting down as if I had lost my back. Besides, I was on the second floor, so there was no way out. He is over 6 feet tall, and even through his clothes, his shoulders and arms are so solid that I, a skinny guy, would never be able to compete with him. I knew he wouldn't kill me, but I was prepared to be beaten to a pulp. Then, the uncle calls out to me with a cheerful smile, "Big brother." I do as he says and look up at him. "Let me see your cell phone. Then we're even. Right?" He asked me for my cell phone. It's a smartphone, perhaps because he had found out about my taste. I was more than happy to accept the offer if he would let me steal it just so he could see what was on it. Thinking it might save me from a beating, I pulled out my phone, which I had tucked away in my pants pocket, and held it out in front of him. He smiled and took the phone, stared at it for a while, and then turned it over to see what it was all about. Thinking there was no way, I interjected, "Oh, if you tap the screen," to which he replied, "Oh, I see, I've never used a smartphone before." I've never used a smartphone before. I thought he was actually a funny guy, so I laughed and said, "Haha." The old man does as I ask, unlocking the phone with a shaky hand and looking at the data folders. Most of the images and videos were pictures taken with friends or when he found something interesting, but of course, being a man, there were also pornographic images. As I scrolled through the images, my uncle's expression changed to haha, but I was itching to feel like I was being watched naked. I looked up to see if this would get me released. "Oh, yes, I'm sorry." I looked up to see if this would get me released, and the uncle, still holding the phone, said, "Well, can you open the phone book for me?" I looked up to see if he was going to let me go. "What?" I responded, and he moved his face closer to me again and asked, "Can you open it for me?" He was like a yakuza, gangster, trying to collect debts. I felt as if I was being stuffed by a debt-collecting yakuza. I opened the phone book and handed it to him. He opens his own mobile phone and starts operating it, silent for a while. Occasionally he says something disturbing like, "Is this a woman?" And I apologize to my phone book friend in my mind. Maybe my uncle wrote down every single phone number and address of my friends in my phone book. I didn't want to think about what it would be used for. After finishing the note, the uncle returned the phone to me and said, "Brother, you can't steal people's stuff anymore, can you? Now you know what happens." He bends down in front of me again and speaks. I said, "Yes, sir." I was so dejected that I couldn't even look him in the eye. Just as I was wondering if he would leave now, he suddenly grabbed me by my hair and pulled me to him. He pulled me in so quickly that I didn't even have time to scream, "There it is," and I was already close enough to kiss his dark face. "Okay, bro. Forget about what's in my cell phone. If the police come to my place, I've already been released from prison and I've paid for my crime. So, I'll be out soon. Then you never know what they will do to you and your friends in retaliation. Don't you understand? Do you understand?" I was really a little bit pissed. I nodded my head as best as I could, shaking my head slightly as he held me by the hair. For a few seconds, his sharp eyes glared at me, but when I started to tear up and my vision blurred, he turned back to his smiling face as quickly as if he had 100 faces and said, "You just have to understand. You are still young. But you have to choose the right person, don't you?" He let go of my hair and patted me on the shoulder. I was released from his restraints and collapsed to my knees, and he silently adjusted my collar and clothes neatly. Then, as if to finish the job, he lightly patted me on both shoulders and said, "Well, I'm going home. I'm going home. Take care, brother," he said with a grin, and left the room with his footsteps making a shuffling sound. At that moment, I noticed for the first time that he had been wearing shoes all the way up to the room, and an empty thought escaped my mind, "Oh, shoes." I was left alone in the room, and I was in a state of lethargy for a while, not feeling alive even though I was in my own room. After that, my uncle never contacted me again. I asked my friends if they had noticed anything unusual, but nothing seemed to have happened. In the end, I still don't know whether the contents of the homeless man's mobile phone were downloaded or taken by the man himself, but he himself said he was out of prison and had atoned for his crime, so maybe he is an ex-convict. This case was my own fault, but it was an experience that I seriously thought was going to get me killed. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.